My girlfriend used to say she liked to test my love for her. But those so-called tests felt more like little psychological landmines she planted just to see how much humiliation I could endure. Like the time she pretended to be sick and called me on a freezing rainy night, asking me to get her cold medicine. It was already midnight, the snow coming down in heavy sheets, but I didn't even hesitate. I rushed out in slippers and a hoodie. I fell 4 times on the icy sidewalk. Still, I managed to get the medicine and come back to find her standing at the door in a cozy robe, smiling like she was proud of herself. She hugged me, called me sweet, and said she wasn't actually sick, she just wanted to see if I'd do it. The pain in my twisted ankle wasn't as sharp as the ache in my chest when I realized she saw my love as some game she could win or lose. Another time she deliberately left the scent of some random guy's cologne on her blouse to provoke me, then posted our argument on her story like it was proof of love. My baby must really love me. Got so jealous. Her followers all thought it was cute. I didn't. She once made me wait in the rain for 3 damn hours outside a cafe, just so she could brag to her girlfriends that I was that kind of guy. Today was my birthday, and after everything we'd been through, I figured I'd still try to talk it out with her. That was my mistake. I called her, and she answered with her usual smugness, "Don't be mad anymore. Come to the Starlight Club tonight. I've got a surprise for you." I told her I was busy. She laughed and said, "What could you possibly be doing?" "I'm getting married tonight." And then she hung up. But what she didn't know was that I'd already been standing under her apartment for 3 hours, cake in my hands, soaking wet, phone silent. The text I sent her earlier, of course, went unread. I was just about to leave when I heard cheers and laughter above. I looked up. There she was, Emily Carter, my girlfriend of 5 years, leaning over her balcony surrounded by friends, all of them whistling and clapping like they were watching some twisted reality show. "James Walker, she said you'd actually wait in the rain for 3 hours," one of her friends shouted. "You're such boyfriend goals. Emily is so lucky." I stood there drenched, holding that stupid cake like a clown in some tragic comedy, and in that moment, the world around me bled out into grayscale. My vision tunneled until all I could see was her. Emily, smiling at me like she'd just won some contest. Not a smile of love. No, it was the look someone gives a loyal puppy who finally learned a trick. And something in me snapped. My chest felt like it had been ripped open. Cold wind poured in, and all I could feel was pain. She waved at me like she was summoning me to perform again. "Come on up, James." I looked at her for a few seconds, then turned around and walked away, letting the rain wash off the last traces of hope. I'd been in love with Emily for 5 years. I was there when she started her company from nothing, when she went from struggling student to small-time CEO. I helped her land her first big client. She hugged me back then, crying like a kid, saying, "James, I'll never forget what you did. I'll treat you well forever." I believed her. Every word. Somewhere along the way, she changed, or maybe she just stopped pretending. But the girl who once stood in the snow handing me a hot sweet potato while I got off the bus on a tutoring night, that girl didn't exist anymore. That memory had kept me going for too long, hoping she'd come back. I should have known better. Love isn't supposed to be a loyalty test. It's not supposed to hurt like this. She didn't want a partner, she wanted a trophy. And I was her favorite prop. I passed every test until I finally failed the only one that mattered, staying. As I passed a trash can on the way back, I didn't hesitate. I shoved the cake inside. That was the last time I'd let Emily Carter make a fool out of me. Walking in the rain, I remembered that one night sophomore year when she stood under the streetlight, umbrella in hand, waiting for me. She ran over with a grin and handed me a hot sweet potato she'd been keeping warm. It felt so genuine, so open. I thought that was love. But that was 5 years ago. The person is the same, but everything else has changed. I've been disappointed for a long time. It's just that I was so attached to the past, to the few good things, I kept hoping maybe, just maybe, she'd come back around. She never did. Instead, she took my kindness and made it her accessory. I had planned to talk to her tonight. Lay it all out. But she made her choice when she let me wait there for hours. She gave me clarity. Funny how pain can do that. As I walked away, I could still hear them laughing behind me. James seems pissed, Emily. Want to go smooth things over, someone said. There's no need, Emily replied, her voice light and indifferent. He's always been dramatic. He'll come crawling back, always does. She was confident. Too confident. Maybe because she thought her new status meant I'd never walk away from someone like her. But she was wrong. I wasn't coming back. Not this time. Emily Carter, I'm done. I don't want you anymore. I don't remember how long I kept walking in the rain that night. All I knew was that something inside me had shut off, like a switch flipped, and all the feelings I'd kept bottled up for years had finally drained out. The city blurred around me as I wandered aimlessly, soaked to the bone but numb to everything. I didn't go home that night. I couldn't, not the place Emily and I had shared, not the apartment full of memories we painted and lit and laughed in. So I spent the night at a hotel near the airport, staring at the ceiling until sunrise. I didn't answer her calls. I didn't check her messages. The next morning, I waited outside the building and watched her leave for work like nothing had happened. Then I went back upstairs and gathered my things. I left her a letter. It wasn't dramatic, just honest. Told her I wasn't taking anything except what I came with, and that she didn't need to worry about cleaning up after me. All she needed was her ID and passport. The rest was her life now, not mine. I stood at the door for a while, staring back into the place we used to call home. It had been nothing when we moved in. A cheap, unfurnished rental we turned into something livable with dollar store lights and second-hand furniture. But it meant something to us then. Later, when we could finally afford it, we bought that place outright. Never upgraded. We just kept patching it, clinging to the idea that what we'd built together was worth saving. But now, those memories felt like a cruel joke. I stepped out and didn't look back. That afternoon, I boarded a flight out of Jojo, changed my number, and left Emily Carter behind. For the first time in years, I didn't know what would come next, and that terrified me more than I'd admit. Years passed. I kept myself busy, kept my head down, kept rebuilding. Then one morning, I found myself back in Heischer, the place I swore I'd never return to. The taxi pulled up to the front gates of Li Guang Villa, a private estate with armed security and old money walls. The moment I rolled down the window, I locked eyes with the guard. "Mr. Johnson," I called softly. The old man squinted through his glasses, and when he recognized me, his face crumbled in disbelief. "Young Master James Walker. You're finally back." His voice shook. I gave him a faint nod and stepped through the gates. The yard hadn't changed much, still perfectly manicured, still unnervingly quiet. No one greeted me, but I didn't expect them to. I knelt in the courtyard on my own. Not out of tradition, not even guilt, just because it felt right. After nearly an hour, someone placed a cushion behind me without a word. I didn't turn to look. I just whispered, "Dad, I'm sorry. I really know I messed up." From the patio, I heard the old rocking chair creak. My father, Mr. Walker, was sitting in it like a statue, his once black hair now mostly silver, his face lined and expression unreadable. He didn't say anything for a long time, and I didn't rush him. Then finally, he opened his eyes and said flatly, "I still remember how you walked away from this house like it meant nothing. All for that girl." His voice was heavy. "Your mother tried to talk sense into you. I tried to discipline you. We begged, we shouted, but you didn't listen. You left us behind like we were strangers." My throat tightened. "I know," I whispered. "I regret it every day. I'll do whatever you ask now. I want to come back." The chair stopped rocking. He looked me in the eye for the first time. "Then marry Samantha Lynn." My brain stuttered. "What?" The name hit me like a slap. Samantha Lynn, my childhood fiancée. It all came back in a rush. The Lynn and Walker families had made that arrangement when we were still teenagers. I had walked away from her without a second thought when I left for Emily. Before I left town, I went to Samantha, asked her to cancel the engagement. She had looked at me calmly and said, "Since when have I ever refused to give you what you wanted?" I thought that was the end of it. I thought she had let go, moved on. "She's still not married?" I asked, stunned. "She's 30, my father replied. She waited. And who else would she marry? You think every woman has a long line of suitors after 10 years of silence?" My mother came out then, carrying a fruit plate. She set it down on the table and glanced at me like I was a mess on the floor. "Still kneeling? You're in the way." I stood up awkwardly. She didn't hug me, didn't smile, just said, "First thing tomorrow, go to the Lynn family. Apologize. And marry her properly." I didn't argue. What could I say? That night I barely slept. The next morning, I went to the Lynn estate. Samantha wasn't there. She was abroad on business. Her relatives greeted me warmly, which shocked the hell out of me. I expected scorn, maybe some cold digs, but instead, Aunt Lynn took my hand like I was family. "You've been relaxing abroad all these years?" she asked with a smile. I nodded dumbly. "Yes, something like that." "Well," she continued, "we were all so embarrassed when you disappeared. Samantha never officially broke the engagement, you know. It wasn't right of us to just let things hang. But Uncle Lynn's already scolded her. Don't worry, just let the elders settle the wedding." It was surreal. After I left, I called Samantha. The phone rang once, then she picked up. "Hello." Her voice hadn't changed, still calm, still collected. "It's me," I said. "James." "I know," she replied simply. "I didn't think our engagement was still valid," I said. "But I get it now. You probably don't want anything to do with me, and that's fair. I'll try to find a way out that doesn't cause any drama." She cut me off. "Why would I mind?" she said. "You didn't commit a crime. You just fell for someone else. It's not the end of the world. So hence the wedding." I blinked. "We haven't set a date. But both families want it soon." "Great," she said. "I'll be back in a few weeks." Then she hung up. I stared at the phone. I couldn't tell if she was indifferent or just resigned. But one thing was clear, Samantha Lynn wasn't bitter. She was just moving forward, with or without me. When she returned, she dropped by the Walker estate like it was nothing. She brought gifts, charmed my parents, acted like we'd never had a decade-long gap between us. She looked more refined than I remembered, more graceful, more confident. When her eyes met mine across the living room, I looked away and took a long sip of tea. A week later, the wedding date was set, May 5th. My birthday. On the morning of the wedding, while getting my hair styled, I got a call from a number I didn't recognize. I answered on reflex. "Hello." A familiar voice crackled through the line. "Oh my God, it really is you," Zoe Miller said breathlessly. "James, where have you been? Emily's been freaking out looking for you. You can't just disappear, please don't contact me again," I said coldly. "We broke up." "That's final." There was a pause, then another voice jumped in. "You left a note, James. That's not a breakup. I never agreed to it. Emily." Her voice, so casual, so full of entitlement, hit me like a punch. "You're still mad about that little rain thing? That's really why you left?" she scoffed. "You're running away over that?" I didn't answer. I didn't owe her anything. "Look," she said, softening her tone. "Today's your birthday. I've got a surprise for you at the Starlight Club. Come by, okay? Baby?" In the background, I could hear laughter. "He's gonna love it." Emily's gonna propose. So romantic, someone squealed. I closed my eyes, rubbed my temples. I'm sorry, I said. I'm getting married today. Silence. Then a brittle laugh. Oh, that's funny, James. You trying to get back at me? You think you can make me jealous, she said, clearly not believing me. I let out a breath. No games. I'm serious. We signed the papers last month. The wedding's today. I won't be inviting you, obviously. My wife wouldn't be thrilled. Her voice cracked. James, stop it. You've had your fun. Enough with the joke. I ended the call, pulled the SIM card out, and tossed it in the trash. My stylist stood frozen, scissors in hand. I looked up and smiled. Sorry about that. You can keep going. Our wedding took place in a small but meticulously decorated church in the heart of Haishar, not one of those cookie-cutter weddings arranged by some generic planning service, but something that despite being a formality felt oddly intentional. I remember looking around the venue, impressed, and quietly asking one of the assistants which company did the design. The assistant leaned in and whispered, Mr. Walker, it was Miss Lynn. She arranged it all herself. I blinked. For someone who was supposedly treating this like a business transaction, Samantha was definitely putting in effort. Maybe too much. I was shuffled into place near the altar, someone adjusting my tie, someone else checking the lighting. Then the music started and the doors opened, and there she was walking toward me in white, her pace steady, her eyes locked onto mine with a calm confidence I didn't know how to read. There was a warmth in her smile that made me forget how scripted this was supposed to be. For a moment, I wondered if maybe she was acting too, but if she was, damn, she deserved an award. Her father led her to me, and when he placed her hand into mine, it wasn't cold. It was soft, warm, steady. The rest of the ceremony went by in a blur: vows, rings, applause, photos, dinner. By the end of the night, I could barely feel my legs from all the smiling and bowing to distant relatives I hadn't seen since childhood. It wasn't until nearly midnight that we were finally alone in our new place, a quiet little villa not far from the city center. I showered first, trying to decompress, and when I came out in casual clothes, I found Samantha sitting on the couch in pajamas, barefoot, scrolling through something on her tablet. Her hair was still damp, strands clinging to her forehead, and her usually elegant vibe was replaced by something softer, almost cozy. Still working? I asked, mostly to break the silence. She looked up. Not really. Just waiting for you. There was no flirtation in her tone, just honesty. I nodded. Well, it's late. We should probably. I didn't even finish the sentence. Before I could blink, she was on her feet, walking toward me. The way she moved was calm but confident, like she'd made a decision and wasn't interested in second-guessing it. In a blink, she'd backed me against the wall. It's late, she repeated, voice low. Yeah, it is. I was still halfway through processing when her lips brushed mine and every coherent thought I had vanished. I didn't expect her to be like that. To be honest, I'd assumed Samantha was the cool, controlled type, someone who kept everything in neat boxes and schedules. But tonight, there was no mask, no performance. Just heat. Real, overwhelming heat. Maybe it was the exhaustion, or maybe it was the fact that I hadn't been touched like that in a long time, or maybe it was just that she was so much more real than I remembered. But the moment I wrapped my arms around her and pulled her into the bedroom, I stopped thinking. The rest of the night was a blur of tangled sheets and breathless laughter and words whispered in the dark. At one point I even bit her shoulder, and she chuckled against my neck and whispered, James, you still like biting people, huh? I wasn't even sure if I heard her correctly. I was too far gone. When I woke up the next morning, she was already half-dressed, standing at the mirror with her back to me. The marks on her shoulders and back were pretty obvious. I considered pretending to sleep, but she turned around, walked over, and lightly smacked the blanket covering my head. I know you're awake. Sleep in if you want. I'm heading to the office. Breakfast is on the table. Her voice was slightly hoarse, but still composed. I lay in bed a little longer, staring up at the ceiling, wondering how the hell I ended up here married to a woman who I barely spoke to for years, but who suddenly felt more real to me than the one I thought I loved. And the weird part? It wasn't awkward. If anything, it felt comfortable. Natural. Over the next few weeks, we developed a routine. She'd come home from work on time, sometimes cook, sometimes order takeout, always ask how my day went. She listened. She really listened. When I accompanied her to business functions or charity dinners, she never shoved me into the spotlight, never used me as some trophy husband. She let me move at my own pace. I played the role of the polite, attentive partner, which wasn't hard when I actually wanted to be around her. And in bed, well, let's just say Samantha Lynn was nothing like the composed public figure she showed the world. We didn't have a prenup. No rules, no cold agreements. Just two adults doing what adults do. And despite how it started, I found myself not just okay with it but looking forward to coming home. My parents noticed too. "You look healthier," my mom said one afternoon, inspecting me like a prized melon at a farmer's market. "More energetic. Glowing complexion. Samantha must be taking care of you." My dad chuckled, adding, "When a man is loved right, it shows. You were such a wreck when you came back. Look at you now." My forced smile faltered just a bit at that. "Thanks," I mumbled, not really wanting to talk about what I looked like when I came crawling home. Dad didn't linger on it. He moved right into business mode. "Speaking of next steps, it's time you started learning the family business properly. I want you at the office next month. No special treatment, you'll shadow me and work from the bottom." He didn't ask, he ordered. I nodded. Okay. That night when I got home, Samantha was heading to the study. "Dinner?" she asked. "Already ate," I replied. "You didn't have much appetite," she said casually. "Not hungry when you're not around." I looked at her, confused. "What does that mean?" "Exactly what I said." She turned to go into the study, but paused at the door. "Oh, by the way, I heard you're moving into an apartment closer to the company?" "Yeah," I said slowly. "Thinking about buying a place nearby. The commute from here's a little long." "When you pick the location," she said, not turning around, "let me know. I'll help furnish it. We'll need a second set of essentials." I blinked. "Wait. You're moving in too?" She turned, raised an eyebrow. "We've only been married a month. You already want to live separately?" Her tone was casual, but I caught the flash of emotion in her eyes. "That's not what I meant," I said quickly. "You're welcome to move in, of course." She smiled slightly. "Glad to hear it. Good night, husband." She disappeared into the study, leaving me stunned. Did Samantha Lynn just call me husband with a straight face? The next few weeks flew by. We moved into a modest but modern apartment closer to the company. It wasn't huge, but it was just the two of us, and she didn't always stay over anyway. My dad didn't tell the company who I washed, just said I was his new assistant. I was thrown straight into the deep end: spreadsheets, supply chain meetings, strategy reports. I had no time to slack off. The busier I got, the more I appreciated how low maintenance Samantha was. She didn't nag, didn't demand constant attention, but when she was around, she made her presence felt. One evening after work, just as I stepped out of the elevator, I bumped into someone I never expected to see: Zoe Miller. She froze mid-step. "James." I gave her a polite smile. "Good evening. What are you doing here?" she stammered. "I work here," I said simply. "I'm not your James, by the way." Her cheeks flushed. I misspoke. "I'm here on business. Just visiting a partner company." I didn't respond. I just stepped around her and went straight to the top floor. Zoe must have asked around, though, because later I heard she went to the general manager asking questions. "Who's that assistant to the chairman?" she reportedly asked. What's his background? And then she asked something that caught everyone off guard, is he married? The secretary replied, Mr. Walker. Never mentioned a wife. Seems single. That's when Zoe walked straight out and called Emily Carter. Emily, she said, you're not gonna believe who I just saw. For days after bumping into Zoe Miller, I was heading home from work, exhausted, mind focused on the report I had to revise for my dad, when I saw her, Emily Carter, leaning against a sleek black car parked right in front of my apartment building, dressed to the nines like she was trying to land a magazine cover, catching the attention of every passerby without even trying, and for a second, I thought maybe I was hallucinating, maybe the day had just been that long, but Nosh was real, and she stepped forward with a smirk and said, James Walker, you haven't looked too hot since leaving me, huh? I didn't say anything, didn't even break stride, just tried to walk past her like she was invisible, but she reached out and grabbed my wrist, her grip tighter than I remembered, and whispered like we were still something, you've had your fun, okay? Let's just stop the games. Come home. Be the good little house husband I trained you to be. No more running around pretending you're better off. That's when I snapped, yanking my hand back and glaring at her, my voice cutting through the dusk like ice, are you seriously sick in the head? I told you I'm married. She laughed, flipping her perfect hair, James, don't insult me. Who would actually believe you're married? I was about to lay into her when another voice interrupted, soft, feminine, but with a lethal edge I'd come to recognize very well. I would, Samantha Lynn said as she stepped between us, her fingers slipping around mine with ease and authority, pulling me to her side like she'd owned that space all along. Her smile was flawless but cold, the kind that didn't reach her eyes, and for the first time since I met her, I realized just how dangerous Samantha could look when someone tried to mess with what was hers. Do you have an issue with me marrying him? Emily looked her up and down, and for a split second, I could see the flicker of something jealousy, maybe even fear, because as much as Emily Carter had built her persona around success and glamour, standing in front of Samantha made her look like she'd been playing dress-up in the wrong league. And you are? Emily asked, her voice losing its fake sweetness fast. I turned and faced her fully, my hand tightening around Samantha's. My wife, I said. Samantha Lynn. Samantha smiled at me, then soft, real, like the warmth behind a locked door finally opening, and in that moment, I didn't care who was watching. I meant it. She was my wife. Emily's expression shifted like storm clouds brewing, and then she lost it. You're married? Seriously? You left me over a stupid little fight and married someone else? Her voice rose in pitch and volume, drawing more attention from people passing by. Do you know how hard I worked to build a future for us? How many nights I went out drinking with clients, closing deals, all to prove I was worthy of you? And you just threw me away over something that petty? Samantha's tone turned icy. The car you parked so dramatically in front of this building, is it yours or did you buy it for James? Emily blinked, caught off guard. The watch on your wrist. The dress. The bag? Samantha continued, voice calm and surgical. All those things, were they for James, or were they for the image you built around him? Emily opened her mouth to speak, but Samantha didn't give her a chance. You treat people like accessories, like props in your own movie. You test their limits, break them down, and when they finally leave, you act like you're the one who's been betrayed. I stared at Samantha in shock. She wasn't just defending Mesh, was saying everything I'd never been able to put into words. My heart was pounding, and before I even realized it, I pulled her closer and said quietly but clearly, you said that perfectly, babe. Samantha's eyes flicked to mine, startled for a second before her ears turned a bit red, but she held her ground. Emily, on the other hand, couldn't hold herself back anymore. She stepped forward, raising her hand like she was going to slap Samantha, but before she could make contact, someone dashed in from the side and yanked her back. It was Zoe. Emily, what the hell are you doing? She hissed, pulling her out of striking range. Samantha didn't flinch. She just reached down, laced her fingers through mine again, and tugged me gently toward the door. We didn't speak a word on the way up to the apartment. Once inside, she went straight to the bathroom while I changed out of my work clothes. I thought maybe the tension would cool off, maybe we'd go back to our usual routine quiet dinner, she'd work in the study, I'd scroll on my phone, maybe we'd cuddle if we weren't too tired. But no. Tonight was different. As soon as I stepped out of the bathroom in my boxers and t-shirt, she was there, in her nightgown, blocking my path, and before I could even ask what she was doing, she kissed me. Hard. With zero hesitation. Her lips moved like they had something to prove, and my brain short-circuited because I'd never felt her this fired up before. I tried to talk, to say something about Emily, to explain that nothing happened, but she didn't give a damn. I know, she whispered between kisses. I saw it all. You didn't do anything wrong. I just want you. Her voice was hoarse, her breath hot, and I gave in, arms circling her waist as we stumbled toward the bedroom. It was fierce, raw, electric. No polite restraint, no choreographed intimacy. This was personal, emotional, real. At some point during the night, I caught myself looking at her like she was the only thing tethering me to the ground. And that scared the hell out of me because somewhere along the line, without warning, I'd caught feelings. Real ones. The kind you can't just switch off. And I realized it when my first instinct after the confrontation with Emily was to find Samantha and explain everything. That's not what people do in arranged marriages. That's what people do when they care. The next morning, she was already up, sitting at the dining table with coffee and her tablet. She looked up and smirked when she saw me. "Good morning, husband." I raised an eyebrow. "You're still calling me that?" "Should I not?" she asked, eyes teasing. "No," I said quickly. "I just didn't think you'd want to." She tilted her head, studying me. "Why wouldn't I?" I didn't answer. I wasn't ready to say it out loud yet. Later that day, we attended a business banquet together, one of those stuffy corporate events where everyone wears tailored suits and fake smiles. She did most of the talking, while I played the supportive partner. I was trying to find a place to sit when I saw her again. Emily. She was perched on a velvet couch, wine in hand, holding court with a group of young execs. Her laugh was loud, her stories dramatic, and her eyes flicked to me the second I walked by. "He waited in the rain for 3 hours once," she was telling them. "In the snow too. Used to bring me breakfast, pick me up from bars, the whole fairytale package." One of the guys raised an eyebrow. "So why'd you let him go?" Emily shrugged. "He left. Said I pushed him too far. But I was just trying to make him stronger." Another guy, sharper than the rest, leaned in and said, "Sounds like you broke him, not built him." Her smile faltered. "What? You say he did all these amazing things for you, but you talk about it like it's your flex, not his love," he said, tilting his glass. "If my girlfriend waited for me in the rain for 3 hours, I'd cry from guilt. Not tell the story like I won a prize." The table went awkwardly silent. I almost felt sorry for her almost. A few minutes later, Samantha appeared beside me and slipped her hand into mine like we'd been doing this forever. "Tired?" she whispered. "A little." "Let's go home," she said, and I didn't even hesitate. We walked out together, arm in arm, and for the first time in a long time, I felt like I was exactly where I was supposed to be. As Samantha and I walked out of that banquet hand in hand, I didn't even need to look back to know all eyes were on us, and for once I didn't care, because in that moment, with her beside me and the past behind me, it finally clicked that I wasn't pretending anymore. This wasn't some corporate charade, some convenient marriage arrangement to satisfy two powerful families. This was something real, something I didn't want to lose, and it scared the hell out of me because I'd spent so long numbing myself from anything that felt even remotely vulnerable, but she made it impossible not to feel, not when she looked at me like I was something worth choosing, not when she stood up for me like she had every right to, and maybe she did, because every time Emily tried to pull me back into her game, it was Samantha who reached out and said no, he's mine now, and I was more than fine with that. The car was already waiting when we got to the garage, but the moment I climbed into the back seat, I noticed someone else was already there, spinning around from the passenger seat like a mischievous squirrel, flashing me a grin so wide I thought my face might crack from confusion. "Hi, brother-in-law," the voice chirped, and I blinked a few times before realizing it was Mia Lin, Samantha's cousin, who I distinctly remembered being introduced to as a guy at that banquet, which now felt like some elaborate prank because the person sitting in front of me was most definitely a girl, petite frame, long hair, and a smirk that suggested she knew exactly how much this was throwing me off. "Wait, weren't you?" I started, but Samantha slid in beside me and casually buckled her seatbelt, cutting me off before I could ask anything embarrassing. "This is my cousin. She just got back to China yesterday." Mia Lin leaned over and grinned. "I've been dying to meet the guy my sister's been obsessing over for the last few years. You're even better looking in person." I opened my mouth to ask what she meant by obsessing, but before I could get the words out, the car suddenly screeched to a halt, jerking all of us forward. The driver rolled down the window and shouted, "What are you doing? Do you want to die?" I looked up and saw her Emily standing in front of the car like a final boss in a cheap drama, makeup flawless, posture theatrical, eyes locked on me with a strange mixture of pain and fury. She marched around the car, yanked the back door open, and said, "Get out. I need to talk to you." I didn't move. "Talk," I said flatly. "From here." She looked at Samantha, then at me, then back at Samantha like she couldn't decide who she hated more, and after a moment of silence, she snapped, "They told me you're the only son of the Walker Group. That your name is on every shareholding document, that you're the one set to take over the whole damn empire. Why didn't you tell me?" I stared at her for a long second and then asked, "Would it have changed anything?" "Of course it would have," she shouted, her eyes wide with disbelief. "If I knew who you really were, I wouldn't have had to test you, wouldn't have felt so insecure, that's the problem," I cut in. "You think love is something that has to be tested? Me getting hypothermia wasn't love to you, it was proof. Me breaking my ankle in a snowstorm wasn't devotion, it was your entertainment. And now that you find out I'm not just some guy with potential but someone with power, suddenly everything makes sense to you. That's not love, Emily. That's calculation." She stood frozen, jaw clenched, hands trembling. "So what, you're just gonna walk away from everything we had? From all those years I gave you?" "You didn't give me anything," I said calmly. "You took my time, my patience, my loyalty. And in return, you gave me tests, silence, and shame. What you're regretting now isn't losing me, it's losing the version of me you thought you could control." I saw tears welling up in her eyes, but they didn't move me anymore. I rolled the window up slowly, locking eyes with her one last time. "If you fall in love again, don't test him. Trust him. Or don't love at all." As we drove away, I saw her reflection in the rearview mirror smaller and smaller, until she disappeared. Samantha reached over and placed her hand over mine. "You okay?" "Yeah," I said. "More than okay." We dropped Mia Lin off first. Before leaving, she added me on messaging apps and sent a quick text, "If my sister ever bullies you, come tell me. I'll take care of her." I chuckled and replied with a thumbs up. As soon as the car door closed behind her, the air in the car shifted. It got quieter, calmer. Samantha didn't say anything, just gently pulled my hand over and rested it on her thigh, her fingers lightly tracing the back of my palm. "Are you tired?" she asked. "A little. You can lean on me if you want." I hesitated but eventually rested my head against her shoulder. For the first time in years, I let someone else carry a bit of my weight. We didn't talk for a while. Just silence. Then, I asked the question I hadn't been able to shake since the banquet. "Do you like me?" The moment the words left my mouth, I felt the tension in her body spike. She was silent for a beat, and then quietly, she answered, "Yeah. I do." "Why?" I asked before I could stop myself. "I always thought this was just business between us." "It was," she admitted. "But not for me. Not entirely." She paused, her voice soft but clear. "We've known each other for almost 17 years, James. I've liked you for most of that time. You just never noticed. That hit harder than it should have. 17 years. You don't remember? She asked with a gentle laugh. I guess I shouldn't be surprised. Try me, I said. She leaned her head against the car window and looked up at the ceiling like she was watching the memory play out on it. When I was 10, I was almost kidnapped outside my school. You saw it happen. You were in a car with bodyguards, but you told them to follow the van. You found me, fought the guy off with your own hands, and then gave me a seashell to stop me from crying. You said, "Don't cry, I'll give you a gift." My chest tightened. That was you? She smiled, still staring out the window. I kept the shell. It's still in my jewelry box. I leaned back and let the silence settle again. I remembered that day, the chaos, the fear, the way my hands shook after biting that guy's arm just to drag some little girl out of a van. I never even caught her name. I just gave her the shell I'd picked up at the beach a few days earlier. And then I forgot. She didn't. So all this time, I said slowly. You liked me? I did, she said simply. I knew about the engagement, but when you came to me and asked me to break it off because you were leaving for someone else, I said yes. Because that's what you wanted. But I didn't want to. Why didn't you tell me? Would it have mattered? She asked, voice small but not bitter. Back then, you only saw her. You never looked at me. I didn't have an answer to that. She didn't expect one. Anyway, she said, her voice brightening a little, I figured if I waited long enough, maybe the universe would push us back into the same orbit. And here we are. I looked at her and suddenly felt the need to say something. Anything. Samantha, I don't like Emily anymore. I haven't for a long time. And I'm not going back to that. I'm here now. With you. She didn't say anything right away, but she reached over and linked our fingers together again. Good, she said quietly. Let's start living for real then. That night after we got home, Samantha went to shower while I sat on the bed, still a little stunned by everything she told me, replaying her words in my head like a broken record. 17 years, she said, 17 years she'd liked me, quietly, steadily, without asking for anything in return, and the shell she mentioned, the one I gave her when we were just kids, suddenly felt like more than a random gesture. Like maybe I'd left a piece of myself with her long before I even knew who she really was, and that thought hit me harder than I expected because I realized I'd been so consumed with chasing the idea of love that I never stopped to notice when it was actually standing right next to me, quietly waiting. I was still processing all of that when Mia Lin messaged me. Brother-in-law, if my sister bullies you again, tell me. I'll personally file a family complaint. I chuckled and replied, okay, I'll keep you on speed dial. A few seconds later, another message popped up, you know, she really does like you. Even before you came back, she used to watch your old interviews and read articles about you. I caught her saving a video once, she thought I didn't see. My thumb hovered over the screen, unsure what to type, and before I could answer, she sent another message. A year ago, on my graduation day, she left halfway through the ceremony to pick up your call. That was the day you proposed. She dropped everything and flew back immediately. Didn't even finish the dinner. I stared at the screen, heart tightening, and for a second I didn't know what to do with that kind of devotion. Before I could gather myself, the bathroom door opened, and Samantha stepped out, hair still damp, wearing that same soft gray robe she always did after showers. She looked at me curiously. Why aren't you sleeping? I locked my phone, stood up, and crossed the room slowly, stopping in front of her without saying anything. I looked at her for a long second, then wrapped my arms around her and said quietly, I'm sorry. I made you wait for so long. She blinked, then smiled, and just as I was about to kiss her, she kissed me first. That night we didn't talk much. We didn't need to. When I woke up the next morning, she wasn't in bed, but I found a note on the counter that said, went to the office early. Eat the breakfast I left you. Love you. It was the first time she'd written it out, and for the first time in a long time, I smiled without thinking about who I used to be or what I used to want. Days passed. Then weeks. And for the first time in forever, my life felt stable, even happy. My job at the company was challenging, but my dad was surprisingly patient, and the team began to respect me not because of my last name, but because I actually did the work. Samantha and I got into a rhythm. She cooked when she had time. I learned to make her coffee just the way she liked it. We went to dinners together, hosted family gatherings, even took a weekend trip just to get away from the noise. She still had that cold, elegant shell around her in public, but at home, she was warm, sarcastic, funny in this dry, subtle way that made me laugh when I least expected it. I'd catch her humming in the kitchen sometimes, barefoot, her hair tied up lazily, and wonder how the hell I'd ever thought love looked like chasing someone who never turned around. And then, just when I thought everything had finally fallen into place, I ran into Emily again. It was at another formal event, corporate, high profile, the kind of thing where everyone wore their best masks. She saw me from across the ballroom, and instead of walking away like I expected her to, she came straight toward me. "James," she said softly, like we were old friends instead of old scars. I didn't flinch. "Emily." She looked thinner than before, more tired, but still composed. "You look good," she said. "Marriage suits you." "Thanks," I replied. "You look busy." She laughed quietly. "Yeah, I've been keeping my head down. Trying to stay out of trouble." I nodded. "That's good. Can I ask you something?" she said suddenly, her voice quieter now. "Did you ever actually love me?" I paused. Not because I didn't know the answer, but because I wanted to say it in a way that didn't reopen every wound. "I did," I said honestly. "Back then, I loved you more than I loved myself. That was the problem." She looked down, nodding slowly. "I see. But I don't regret leaving," I added. "And I don't miss it. Because I finally found someone who never asked me to prove anything. She just stayed." Emily bit her lip and whispered, "She's lucky." I shook my head. "No. I'm the lucky one." And with that, I walked away. I didn't look back. That night, back at home, I told Samantha about it. She was sitting in the kitchen, sipping tea, and when I finished recounting the conversation, she didn't say much, just reached across the table and took my hand. "I don't mind that she asked," she said softly. "But I'm glad you didn't lie to her. Do you ever get tired of being the strong one?" I asked. "Sometimes," she admitted. "But it's easier with you here." That night, as we were getting ready for bed, she pulled out a small wooden box from her dresser. "I want to show you something." She opened it carefully, and inside was a small, white shell, faded but still intact. "You kept it," I said, almost breathless. "Of course I did," she smiled. "It was the first thing anyone ever gave me that wasn't out of obligation or expectation. You didn't know me. You just saw I was scared and gave me something to make me feel safe. I've never forgotten that." I looked at the shell, then at her, and realized I'd been given a second chance at something I didn't even know I was capable of. Real love, the kind that doesn't scream for attention or come with ultimatums, the kind that's quiet, patient, and unconditional. "Samantha," I said slowly, "I think I'm falling for you." She smiled again, but this time, there was something behind it. "Then fall, husband. I'm right here." I leaned in and kissed her, and for once, I didn't feel like I had to brace myself. No storm. No tests. Just peace. A few months later, we visited my childhood home again. My mom pulled Samantha aside and whispered, "He's changed. He's not just calmer's better. I don't know what you did, but thank you." Samantha smiled politely, but later that night, when it was just the two of us, she said, "I didn't change you. You just needed space to heal. You did the rest." I reached for her hand. "Maybe. But I wouldn't have gotten here without you." And I meant it. For all the chaos that came before, for every heartbreak, every regret, every rainy night where I waited for someone who never planned to show up, I finally understood why none of it worked. Because real love doesn't ask you to beg. It waits. Silently. Patiently. Sometimes for 17 years. And when it finds you, you'll know because it won't demand that you suffer to prove your worth. It'll just hand you a shell and say, "Don't cry. I'll be here."